probably one of the most asked questions I get is how do you travel? How do you afford to travel? And there's definitely a common misconception that you have to be very rich to be able to travel, when in reality you can travel without having a lot of money, and there's a lot of different unique ways you can do it. I'm not rich. No, I don't have like rich parents who fund my trips. I've paid for all my own trips, and then just now in the past year I've started working with different like tour groups or whatnot who will maybe send me on a trip for free. But for the most part, I've always funded all my own travel because I'm passionate about traveling and it is so important to me that I've always kind of found a way to do it. There's so many different ways of doing it. You just have to be willing to like put yourself out there and try something different. So we are going to jump into some ways that you can travel for cheap or even for free. We're gonna kind of break it down into some sections of transportation, so how you get there, how you get around, housing, and the ways that you can work and earn some money on the road. So first up is flights, which, you know, if you want to travel, you need to get from point A to point B. There's a lot of different ways of doing it. I feel like in our current day and age, flights are the cheapest they've ever been. It can be so cheap. Like I just bought a ticket to France one way for $150, which is really freaking good. So I always use Skyscanner first and foremost. It does of course help if you have flexibility on your time and your dates. It's not absolutely necessary, but it does help because there's going to be cheaper tickets depending on when you're looking. So on Skyscanner there's an everywhere feature where you basically select the location you're leaving from and you type in everywhere, and it shows you the cheapest tickets from your local airport. There's also an option where you can click cheapest month. So let's say you're flying from let's say New York to France, and then you can click cheapest month, and then Skyscanner shows you the cheapest months and the cheapest dates to travel to whatever your dream destination is. Also, I recommend looking up flights with an incognito window so your cookies can't be tracked. And I also recommend Jet Radar that often has very long layovers but cheap flights. So check that out as well. Another thing that I highly recommend using, and I used a ton in Europe in order to save money traveling around, is buses. There's FlexiBus, Bolt Bus, Greyhound buses, etc. You can literally get from like France to Italy for like $20. It's very efficient, especially if you are traveling within Europe. It's nice if you're booking just a day or two in advance. Train prices usually go up if you wait to the last minute to book, but you can often book a semi-last minute bus for still super cheap, and it's a great and efficient way to get around. Next, of course, is trains. So when it comes to trains, getting a rail pass is your best way to save money on the go. It's a lot cheaper than if you were to buy individual tickets. Instead, you can buy a pass for a certain amount of time to certain countries, specifically within Europe. That way you buy that rail pass in a certain amount of time, and then within that time you can just go crazy and take that train everywhere, save that coin, and get to see a lot of different places. And then another thing that has to be mentioned when it comes to traveling for cheap is making use of a frequent flyer system. Every time you buy a ticket, make sure you're getting those frequent flyer miles because they do add up over time. Also, there's travel credit card hacking, which I'm not going to get into because there's a lot of videos of people who know a lot more than I do. But basically, different credit cards offer different point systems as well as like an initial reward for signing up for them. So I recently got the Chase Sapphire card, and if I spent a certain amount of money within a lot of time, I got like 60,000 points to use towards traveling, which I ended up hitting those points, and I ended up taking a trip to Japan, and I didn't have to pay for the flight, which I was more than okay with. Obviously, a disclaimer, be careful, don't get yourself into debt, but be aware of those mile points out there that can really add up over time and save you money when it comes to flying. The next section is like working / living places for free in exchange for work, which I think is one of the biggest ways you can travel for cheap or even for free. The first being WWOOFing, which stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. I have not done this yet, but I'm going to be traveling to Europe, and I definitely plan on doing it when I'm there. So essentially what you do is you work a few hours on a farm in exchange for room and board. So you're not getting paid and you're not paying the farm, but instead you're doing some type of manual labor or work around their property in exchange for getting to stay there. And I've had friends do in Hawaii, in Italy, in New Zealand, like all over the world. And a friend was working on a fruit farm, so every day she was picking fruit and doing all of that. And another person that stayed at like an animal farm and was helping out with sheep. It's honestly like a big mixture. For one, you definitely need to do your research. Don't just sign up for any farm. I'm gonna say that for a lot of these. While there are a lot of great opportunities, there are some bad opportunities, so just like know what you're getting yourself into. So you want to make sure that you're looking into it and that it's a good place, that you're comfortable with what they're providing you. It's an incredibly hands-on way to get to know a new country and culture through agriculture. Next is workaway / homestay / helpx. And this is pretty similar to WWOOFing, but instead of being on a farm, it's a little bit more broad on the different type of things you'll do in exchange for accommodation. It could be anything from like helping around the house to cat sitting to helping someone with their business. etc. In exchange for helping them out, you get a free place to stay. They're basically great platforms if you're traveling on a budget, if you have a flexible schedule and you want a very like authentic local experience. There's tons of listings for tons of different options, and it's a great way to save money as you go. I remember I met this woman in Berlin who was literally staying in Germany for free at this nice apartment for like 3 weeks, just literally watching someone's cat. Another one is to work at hostels. A lot of hostels offer work exchange, which basically means you do a few hours of work for them in exchange for getting to stay for free at the hostel, which can save you a lot of money when it comes to accommodation. It could be anything from doing cleaning to bartending to managing the front desk. It's nice is that it's often flexible. If you're coming for just a few days, a few weeks, a few months, you can figure that out. A lot of times when traveling, the biggest expense is the accommodation, so it's a great way to have that covered. Next is to be an au pair, which I actually do have some experience with. I moved to Paris on my own when I was 18, and I was kind of an au pair. Like, I didn't do it through one of these programs, but I had a family friend who had an extra bedroom and had kids they needed help with, and I was like, okay, I'll come help. And it's kind of a part-time au pair or nanny to the kids in exchange for free accommodation. So with this, you'll usually get room and board and often even a paycheck on top of it, and you're basically a nanny for someone's kids. It's different for every family. For some people, it's like very much a full-time thing. For some families, it's only a few hours a week. For some with older kids, it's not as hands-on. Maybe you're more so working on teaching them English and helping them get from point A to point B. It's a great way to be in a new country, to really be immersed in with the culture through a family. But it often works too that you'll get like weekends off and some vacation time, and it's definitely something worth looking into. Another popular way is teaching English, which I actually considered doing when I was about to graduate, before like YouTube took off. Alas, here I am. Basically, it's a great way to be able to live abroad for an extended period of time, like 6 months, a year, 2 years, etc. One of my best friends is doing it in Spain right now, and she really loves it. Usually the requirements are that you're a native English speaker. You usually need like a bachelor's degree in something. It doesn't have to be English or teaching. And then you take the TEFL certification, which allows you to teach English abroad. You can do it in so many different countries. Certain countries are higher paying, I believe, like Asia and the Middle East, and then Europe, you're not getting as much, but you're still getting to live there. A few other things worth looking into that are more of a career path that I'm not going to fully dive into is becoming a tour guide, working as a flight attendant, joining the Peace Corps, volunteering abroad. And yes, there are volunteer abroad options where you don't have to pay, because I feel like a lot of programs are like, pay us thousands of dollars to come volunteer. Especially for students, I know goabroad.com is a good one that connects students with different opportunities for volunteering, teaching, interning, etc. Check them out. Another thing is getting a working holiday visa, which initially can be a little bit expensive, but is great if you want to live in a country for an extended period of time and be able to get a job there. I've had a few friends who have done it in Australia, where they get like I think it's a 1-year holiday visa, and then they're able to go, work as a bartender at a coffee shop, etc., and be able to stay in the country for a while. And then when it comes to housing and accommodation, which I touched on a little bit before, but not totally, I still love using hostels. It's a great way to save money. It's a great way to meet people if you're traveling solo or with a friend and you want to meet others. I've had a fine time staying in mixed dorm rooms. You can stay in all-female dorm rooms. You can get your own dorm room. It's for a little bit more money. A lot of times too, in the morning they provide breakfast, and you can, take a little extra apple and bread, stick in your pocket to go and save money on food. They often have like free walking tours and like discounted pub tours that you can join to meet other people and get to experience the city for cheap. Another thing is Airbnbs, which I love. I love Airbnbs, and something that is super helpful is they often have weekly and monthly discounts. If you're booking a month at a time, you often get a 35 to 50% discount. So I just booked a month-long Airbnb in Paris, and it literally was 50% off because I booked for a long period of time. So if you're going somewhere for a while, book it out in advance, book it long, and you'll save a lot of money. And then another popular one, which is a great way to save money, is couch surfing. I've heard great things. I've never personally done it. For one, you get to stay somewhere for free, often on someone's couch, sometimes their extra bedroom. A lot of time the people you're staying with will give you incredible local tips or even show you around, and it's a great way to get to see a city, and it's a great way to get to know a spot better. I've heard that it's easier for females to get like approved by the host. Obviously, be careful, take it with a grain of salt, make sure you're checking the references and the reviews of the person you're staying with. But a lot of people are on there because they want to meet people that are traveling and get to know others. So it's a great way to not have to pay anything for accommodation. Okay, I want to keep this video short, so I'm gonna wrap it up. Those are some of my tips on how to travel cheap and even for free at times. If you have any suggestions, leave a comment below. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.